On December 7th, 2009, two box fans were running in the living room of a quiet home on Sarah Circle in West Valley City, Utah. They were aimed at a couch that had clearly been cleaned. On the floor nearby, there were traces of blood. A woman's purse sat untouched in the master bedroom. Her wallet was there, her keys. Her cell phone was found in the family minivan parked outside, the SIM card removed. Upstairs, the beds where two little boys usually slept were empty. And Susan Powell, a 28-year-old mother, a Wells Fargo broker, a woman who never missed a day of work without calling, was gone. Her husband would return later that day with their sons. He said he'd taken them camping in the desert after midnight, in a snowstorm, in freezing temperatures, with a 2-year-old and a 4-year-old. He said Susan stayed home. He said he didn't know where she was. He never reported her missing. And to this day, more than 16 years later, Susan Powell has never been found. Before we go further into this case, I want to know, where are you watching from right now? Drop your city in the comments. Susan Powell disappeared from West Valley City, Utah. But the aftermath of this case stretched across 2 states. Someone watching this right now might live near where answers are still buried. And that matters more than you think. Susan Marie Cox was born on October 16, 1981, in Alamogordo, New Mexico, and grew up in Puyallup, Washington, a suburb south of Tacoma. She was the daughter of Chuck and Judy Cox, and she had 3 siblings. Friends and family described Susan as warm, compassionate, and deeply devoted to the people around her. She was active in her church, a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, and she excelled academically. She was the kind of person who showed up for everyone, every time. In the year 2000, when she was 19 years old, Susan met Josh Powell through an LDS Institute of Religion course in the Tacoma area. He was 24. He hosted a dinner at his apartment, and the two reconnected. A relationship formed quickly. Josh proposed within days. They married on April 6, 2001, at the Portland, Oregon Temple. After the wedding, the couple moved in with Josh's father, Stephen Powell, in South Hill, Washington. What should have been a temporary arrangement became the beginning of something far more disturbing. Stephen Powell developed a fixation on his daughter-in-law. He secretly filmed Susan around the house. He spied on her with a mirror while she used the bathroom. He stole her underwear. He read her private journals. He posted love songs about her online under a fake name. In 2003, Stephen confessed his feelings to Susan directly, a conversation that was unintentionally recorded on his own camcorder. Susan rejected him, and shortly after, she and Josh left Washington, in part to put distance between themselves and Stephen. The couple settled in West Valley City, Utah. In 2004, Susan found work as a broker at Wells Fargo Financial. Their first son, Charles, called Charlie, was born in 2005. Their second son, Braden, followed in 2007. From the outside, the Powells looked like a young family building a life. But behind closed doors, the marriage was deteriorating. Susan documented her growing concerns in emails to friends and coworkers between 2008 and 2009. She wrote about marital stress that had persisted for years. She worried that the fighting was affecting Charlie. She pushed Josh toward counseling. She was a devout woman trying to make her marriage work, but she was also realistic about the danger she might be in. At some point, the exact date is unclear, Susan placed a handwritten will inside a safe deposit box at the bank where she worked. It was registered in her name alone. Josh did not know about it. In that letter, she wrote about how bad her marriage had become. She mentioned that Josh had threatened to destroy her and told her the children would not have both a mother and a father if she tried to leave. And she wrote a line that would later become central to this case. "If I die, it may not be an accident, even if it looks like one." Susan also noted that Josh had taken out a life insurance policy on her. Investigators would later determine that the total value of all policies on Susan's life amounted to approximately $1.5 million. The family had filed for bankruptcy in 2007. Now that you know who Susan Powell was, not a case file, not a headline, but a woman who wrote down her fears because she wasn't sure she'd be alive to speak them. Does she remind you of anyone? Someone cautious, someone careful, someone who kept going for her kids? Tell me in the comments. Saying her name keeps her story alive. On the morning of Sunday, December 6th, 2009, Susan took Charlie and Braden to church. That afternoon, a neighbor and friend named Giovanna Owings visited the Powell home. The group had lunch together, pancakes and eggs prepared by Josh. Susan mentioned she wasn't feeling well and wanted to take a nap before dinner. Owings left the home at approximately 5 o'clock that evening. It was the last time anyone outside the Powell household saw Susan alive. What happened next is known only through Josh Powell's account, an account that investigators would challenge from the very beginning. According to Josh, sometime after midnight, now the early hours of Monday, December 7th, he decided to take Charlie, age 4, and Braden, age 2, on a camping trip. He said they drove to Simpson Springs, a remote area along the Pony Express Trail in Utah's West Desert. He claimed Susan stayed home because she was feeling sick. He said he last saw her alive at around 12:30 in the morning. So he said he lost track of what day it was and didn't realize it was a work day on Monday, which is why he never called in to his employer or dropped the children off at daycare. The temperatures that night were well below freezing. A winter storm had moved through the area, blanketing the region with snow. The next morning, Monday, December 7th, Susan did not show up for work at Wells Fargo. She did not call. The children did not arrive at their daycare provider, Debbie Caldwell. Caldwell contacted the family's emergency contact, Jennifer Graves, Josh's estranged sister, who lived in nearby West Jordan. Jennifer called her mother, Terica Powell, and together they drove to the Powell home. They couldn't reach Josh or Susan by phone. They called 911. West Valley City Police responded. Concerned about possible carbon monoxide poisoning, officers broke in through a front window. The house was empty. Toys were scattered around. A stereo was playing loudly. In the living room, 2 box fans were running, aimed at a couch that appeared to have been recently cleaned. There was a wet spot on the carpet nearby. Investigators also found what appeared to be blood on the tile floor near the couch. Susan's purse, wallet, and keys were in the master bedroom. Her cell phone was in the family minivan, with the SIM card removed. Josh Powell returned home with Charlie and Braden late that afternoon. Susan was not with him. Detective Ellis Maxwell of the West Valley City Police Department was assigned to the case and conducted the first interview with Josh that evening, followed by a second the next day. Josh repeated his camping story. He showed no urgency about Susan's absence. He did not ask where she was. He did not appear concerned. Investigators were skeptical from the start. No one could explain why a father would take 2 toddlers into the frozen desert after midnight. Police searched the Simpson Springs area where Josh claimed to have camped, but they could not determine whether anyone had actually been there. Within days, forensic testing confirmed that the blood found on the tile floor belonged to Susan. On December 9th, police served a search warrant on the Powell residence. Inside, they found the life insurance policies on Susan. They found the traces of her blood. And they found other items of interest in the family's minivan, items that would later be noted in case documents. And investigators also learned that Josh had previously mentioned to coworkers how someone could hide a body in an abandoned mine shaft in the western Utah desert. By December 14th, Josh had retained an attorney. He became, in the words of investigators, increasingly uncooperative. On December 24th, West Valley City Police officially named Josh Powell a person of interest in Susan's disappearance. He was the only person of interest. He was never charged. On January 6, 2010, Josh returned to Utah with his brother Michael to pack the family's belongings. He announced he was moving permanently to Puyallup, Washington. He had lost his job. He moved into his father Stephen's house, along with Michael, another brother named John, and his sister Alina. He cut off Susan's parents, Chuck and Judy Cox, from seeing their grandchildren. In the weeks and months after the move, Josh and Stephen launched a website called SusanPowell.org. The site portrayed Josh as a victim of a smear campaign orchestrated by the Cox family and the LDS Church. Anonymous posts, widely believed to have been written by Josh and Stephen, speculated that Susan had run off with a man named Stephen Kosher, a Utah journalist who had vanished in Nevada around the same time. The theory was that Susan and Kosher had fled to Brazil together. Police found no evidence supporting this claim. Meanwhile, the children were beginning to talk. Charlie, the older son, told investigators that he had gone camping the night his mother disappeared, and that his mother had come with them. He said Susan did not come home with them. Weeks after the disappearance, after the family had moved to Washington, and Charlie told a teacher at church that his mother was dead. Months later, Braden, the younger son, drew a picture at daycare of a van with 3 people inside, and told a staff member that Mommy was in the trunk. Charlie also told investigators that his mother stayed where the crystals are and referenced Dinosaur National Park. Investigators believed he may have been confusing locations from a prior family camping trip to Dinosaur National Monument along the Utah-Colorado border. These statements from children so young were difficult to interpret. They contain both plausible details and clearly fantastical elements. But one thing was consistent. Both boys indicated their mother had been with them that night, contradicting their father's story. You've now seen the same evidence the investigators had, plus a husband's story that didn't add up. Blood in the house, fans drying a freshly cleaned couch, children saying their mother went with them but never came back. Before I walk through the theories, what's your read? What do you think happened that night on Sarah Circle? Drop it in the comments. The investigation into Susan Powell's disappearance was extensive. Between late 2009 and mid-2013, between 4 and 15 detectives were assigned to the case on any given day. Detective Maxwell estimated he personally made 10 to 15 trips to Washington State to follow leads. The department spent more than $500,000 on the investigation. But the case was built on circumstantial evidence. No body was ever recovered, no murder weapon was ever identified, and the only person of interest refused to cooperate. In January 2010, West Valley City Police sent Josh's sister Jennifer Graves into the Powell home wearing a wire, an operation they internally called Operation Puyallup. Jennifer confronted Josh directly, at one point pushing him into a bathroom and demanding he reveal where Susan's body was. Josh denied knowing anything, citing his attorney's advice. The operation did not produce a confession. Police also investigated Michael Powell. Shortly after Susan disappeared, Michael had sold his 1997 Ford Taurus to a wrecking yard in Pendleton, Oregon, for salvage value. He never adequately explained why. When investigators later found the vehicle and brought in a cadaver dog, the dog alerted to the trunk, indicating that decomposing human remains had been present. DNA testing on the vehicle was inconclusive. Michael had also been exchanging encrypted emails with Josh, communications that police were never able to fully decode. In August 2011, West Valley City Police searched abandoned mine shafts near Ely, Nevada, based on information related to the case. They found nothing. In September 2011, authorities searched Topaz Mountain, a desert area near Nephi, Utah, that Josh had frequently used as a campsite. Search dogs detected a scent. There were signs of recent digging, but after excavating several feet, investigators found no remains. The investigation took another turn in September 2011 when police served a search warrant on Stephen Powell's home in Puyallup. Inside, they found over 4,500 images of Susan taken without her knowledge, including close-ups of her body. And they also found voyeuristic recordings of young girls in the neighborhood and images classified as child pornography. Stephen Powell was arrested and charged with 14 counts of voyeurism and 1 count of possession of depictions of minors engaged in sexually explicit conduct. He was later convicted and sentenced to prison. As a result of the raid and Stephen's arrest, Josh lost custody of Charlie and Braden. The boys were placed in the care of Chuck and Judy Cox in September 2011. A custody battle followed. On February 1, 2012, a Washington judge ordered Josh to undergo a psychosexual evaluation, including a polygraph test, before he could regain custody. The Cox's attorney later reported that the children had been opening up to their grandparents. The oldest boy, Charlie, reportedly told them that they had gone camping, or that his mother was in the trunk and that his parents both got out of the car, but his mother disappeared. Then came February 5, 2012. A social worker named Elizabeth Griffin Hall drove Charlie, age 7, and Braden, age 5, to Josh's rental home in Graham, Washington, for a court-authorized supervised visit. When they arrived, Josh opened the door and pulled both boys inside. He slammed the door before Griffin Hall could enter. She immediately smelled gasoline. She heard the children crying. She called 911. Within moments, an explosion rocked the house. Josh had attacked his sons with a hatchet, doused the home in gasoline, and set it on fire. All 3 died. Investigators later determined that Josh had planned the act in advance. In the days before, he had donated boxes of the boys' toys to Goodwill. Minutes before the fire, he emailed his pastor and several family members with a message that read like a farewell. He left behind messages for his attorney and relatives, apologizing for what he was about to do. None of his final messages mentioned Susan. In February 2013, almost exactly 1 year after the murder-suicide, Michael Powell died by suicide in Minneapolis, jumping from the roof of his apartment building's parking garage. On May 21, 2013, West Valley City Police officially closed their active investigation into Susan's disappearance. In a press conference, they stated their belief that Josh Powell had murdered Susan and that Michael Powell had helped him conceal her body. The case was reclassified as cold. Detectives said they would follow any new leads that came in, but the primary investigation was over. That's one explanation. Josh acted alone, or with his brother's help. But here's what keeps investigators and analysts up at night. They never found Susan, not in the desert, not in the mine shafts, not near Topaz Mountain. Without a body, without a crime scene, without a single piece of physical evidence placing Susan in a specific location after that Sunday evening, can we be absolutely certain about what happened? Does the absence of her remains trouble you too? Tell me in the comments which theory you lean toward and why. The prevailing theory, and the one held by law enforcement, is that Josh Powell killed Susan in their home on the night of December 6, 2009, likely after their neighbor left and the children were asleep. The blood on the floor, the freshly cleaned couch, the fans running to dry the area, all of it points to a crime scene that was hastily sanitized. As the proponents of this theory believe Josh loaded Susan's body into the family minivan and drove to a remote location in the West Desert, where he disposed of her remains. The camping trip with the children was the cover story, a way to explain why he was out of the house for hours in the middle of the night. His later conversations with coworkers about hiding a body in a mine shaft, the life insurance policies, the handwritten will, and his complete lack of concern when Susan was reported missing all support this theory. Police have publicly stated they believe Josh committed the act and that Michael helped him cover it up, possibly by providing a vehicle or helping dispose of evidence. Michael's sale of his Ford Taurus to a salvage yard shortly after the disappearance, the cadaver dog's alert on the trunk, and the encrypted communications between the brothers all fuel this line of reasoning. A second line of inquiry focused on Stephen Powell. His obsession with Susan was well documented. Thousands of secret photographs, surveillance footage, love songs written under aliases. Some investigators and members of Susan's family believe Stephen may have had knowledge of the crime or even involvement, though West Valley City Police ultimately stated that Stephen, most likely, had no direct involvement in Susan's disappearance. Stephen was in Washington State on December the 6th and 7th, 2009, which placed him far from the crime. But his influence over Josh, his willingness to participate in a coordinated public relations campaign to discredit Susan's family, and the depth of his fixation made it difficult for many to fully rule him out. Stephen served nearly 6 years in prison on the voyeurism and child pornography convictions. He was released in July 2017 and died of natural causes in Tacoma, Washington, on July 23, 2018. He was 68 years old. He never spoke publicly about any involvement in Susan's disappearance and was never charged in connection with it. A third theory, the one pushed by Josh and Stephen themselves, was that Susan left voluntarily. They claimed she was mentally unstable, that she had run off with another man, possibly Stephen Cooker. They planned to publish excerpts from Susan's teenage diaries to support this narrative. A judge issued a permanent injunction blocking them from doing so. Police found no evidence that Susan had left of her own accord. Her purse, wallet, phone, and identification were all left behind. As she had made no withdrawals, no purchases, no contact with anyone. Her family, her friends, her co-workers, everyone who knew her said the same thing. Susan would never have left her sons. This theory has been widely dismissed. This case has been cold for more than 16 years. But cold doesn't mean closed. If you've ever followed a case that went unsolved for decades and then finally broke open, a confession, a new DNA match, a witness who finally came forward, tell me about it in the comments. Those stories are the reason cases like Susan's still have a chance. Susan Powell's body has never been found. Her case remains officially open and assigned to a detective in Utah. Anyone with information is asked to contact the West Valley City Police Department at 8018-404-000, referencing case number 09/054602. The Utah Department of Public Safety also maintains a cold case tip hotline at 833-DPS-SAFE. That's 833-377-77233. In the years since the investigation was closed, the legal battle continued. Chuck and Judy Cox sued the Washington State Department of Social and Health Services, alleging the agency's negligence contributed to the deaths of Charlie and Braden. In July 2020, a Pierce County jury found DSHS negligent and awarded the Cox family $98.5 million, an amount that reflected the suffering the boys endured in their final moments. A judge later reduced the award, but a Washington Court of Appeals reinstated the full verdict in 2023. In March 2015, Chuck Cox won a court dispute with Josh's mother, Teresa, and sister Alina over control of Susan's estate, in which included over $2 million in life insurance proceeds. Chuck placed the money in trust, holding out hope, even then, that Susan might somehow be found alive. In February 2026, Judy Cox, Susan's mother, passed away. She had spent more than 15 years searching for her daughter. In her final days, she told her family she couldn't wait to see Susan and the boys again. Her daughter Denise said their mother had always believed Susan would not be found in her lifetime. Judy never stopped hoping. She just ran out of time. Susan Powell was 28 years old when she disappeared. She was a mother, a daughter, a sister, a woman who saw danger coming and wrote it down because she was afraid no one would listen. She put her fears in a safe deposit box, sealed them away, and went home to her children. She didn't run. Yes, she stayed. And now it is up to the rest of us to find her. The file stays open, the desk stays ready. Until next time. If this case hit you, if Susan's story is going to stay with you, subscribe to the Unsolved desk. Every case we cover is one more file that refuses to close. Hit subscribe, turn on notifications, and share this video with someone who needs to hear Susan's name.